to 5 things that you value the most in your life. The things you would fight for, the things you would stand up for. In other words, what are your core values? This is one of the first questions I ask anyone with whom I'm entering a coaching relationship with. It's one of the first questions I ask participants of the You Collective Coach Certification Program. Now, as you know, You Collective stands for your vision, our world, and the unlimited potential that that contains. Now, before we dive into creating your vision, we must set the foundation upon which you will build your life. In other words, review the foundation, which are your values. Now, in my coaching practice, I have really committed to creating a powerful values and vision-based coaching system. And so we're going to take some time to review yours. Now, why am I obsessed with creating a foundation through your values? Well, partly because I was brought up in a very values-oriented family, but I also got the chance to work for Lululemon for many years. 8 years, in fact, not consecutively, but in all, I was there in and out over a period of 8 years. And one of the things that I really admired about the company, and that I still admire today, is its commitment to educate its employees on the values upon which the business is built and that they live by. This is something that Chip Wilson was really passionate about. And I know that Chips sometimes get a bad rap, but I will always be extremely grateful to this man who created a beautiful company that still changes people's lives on a day-to-day basis. And Chip was a really value-oriented person, and he was happy to share those with every single person who worked for the company. I remember having conversations talking about, well, what are the values? What are the main values that Lululemon lives by? We would quiz new employees about it. And it was something I thought was really cool. And in a way, I kind of thought that that's what people did in business settings. And when I started out as a coach, my first corporate workshop, an Inspire and Empower workshop, was in an office in the old Port of Montreal. And I asked participants if they knew the core values upon which the business they worked for was built upon. Not one person knew the core values of the business for which they worked so many hours for. A company for which they spent more time in 1 week than they did on other things they were really passionate about or with their loved ones. This was super alarming to me. How could you devote yourself to a company or anyone else for that matter without knowing what they stand for and what they value? Now, a lot of people didn't even know what their core values were. And it really became important for me to tackle this head on, be it in a private coaching setting or in a corporate setting. And so that's what we're going to do with you today. I've got a great worksheet to support you, and all you got to do is click on it, download it, and take some time to devour it in order to start setting the tone for your foundation for your values. Now, some people, when I ask them what 3 to 5 things they value the most, they know it right off the bat. It's an easy answer for them. Others kind of scratch their head a little bit and they're like, never really asked myself that. First of all, that's totally okay. It's not necessarily something that people ask themselves often, and I hope to change that. Now, in order to get you started and to open yourself up to taking a look, what are the things that are really important to me? What do I value? Here's a few guidelines. Now, the first thing you might want to ask yourself is, where would I really love to spend my time, my money, and my energy? Where would I do that gladly? Perhaps you're already doing it, and it's a good place to start. And now maybe you can jot down a few of those things. And they might actually be material things. And if you're writing down things, say a pair of running shoes, perhaps you can then ask yourself, what is it about my running shoes that I value so much? Perhaps it's the freedom to go for a run or to be healthy and strong. Take a look, dive a little bit deeper. You might even ask yourself, what are my possessions? What are my most prized possessions? What is it about those that you value the most? So much information to be seen in that. Now, the next question I often ask myself and others, one which I find is incredibly inspiring and powerful, especially since I want to be a mother one day and hopefully one day soon, is asking yourself, what values do you want to reflect into your children? What values do you want to instill in them? When people ask themselves that question, something really lights up. It's no longer just about how we're living our life, but about the impact it has on our children, our communities, and the world. So regardless of whether or not you want to have children or not, that's not the point. but what values do you want to radiate? Do you want to share with the world? And take the time to really ask yourself that question. What would you want people to think are your core values? And are you living by those today? Is the life you're currently living a reflection of your core values? Or is your foundation a little bit rocky? Now, if it is, don't get into the spiral of self-hate and negativity and being like, oh my gosh, I'm totally living outside of my values. Maybe you drank too much last night and one of your core values is health. Don't worry about it, but you can now think about moving into the future. How do you want to behave? And so one challenge I would have to you is to ask yourself, what's one thing I could start doing this week, or even better today, that would be in line with my core values? And on the flip side, what's one thing I could stop doing that is in line with my values? Now, if you're still feeling stuck, there's an additional exercise that I think is beneficial, even if you're not stuck, to go even deeper into this conversation. So as you'll see in the worksheet that comes with this video, is you'll have kind of not an exhaustive list, but a list of values. And there's way more where that came from, but I selected a certain amount that fit onto one page. Now add in whatever's missing there and select maximum up to 10. Just circle the values that pop out at you, maybe that really just stand out and resonate with you. And then the next step is to narrow it down to your top 3, max 5 core values. Now to take it to the next step on the next page is to write down what's that core value and what does that mean to you? How do you live by that value? What are maybe activities that represent your honoring that value? How you define that value is really unique to you. There's not one way to do this exercise, but I think it's really important to get clear on how you live by that value and what it means to you, especially in a world where we are told time and time again how we should be living our life. It's not about how we should be, but rather how are we creating our lives in an authentic fashion. How you define health might be very different than the way I do, and that's perfectly okay. And the reason why I find this step particularly important is to still feel strong and powerful when I'm feeling that someone's challenging the way I live my life. Now, it's really good to be challenged and to review your values from time to time. But sometimes it's not necessary to flip your whole life around just because someone said so. And in line with that, I encourage you to revisit this exercise from time to time. Check in. Are you living your life in a value-centered way? Are the values you claim to live by still pertinent to the person you are? We change, we transform, and we evolve, and our core values might evolve with that as well. Now, a really good place to take a look and see if you're living alongside your core values is your calendar. It's your agenda. Where are you spending your time? If your agenda doesn't reflect, or where your appointments, where you're spending all this, non-renewable, this most valuable resource that is non-renewable, then you got to make a change there. Health is one of my core values, and so is fun. And so it's really important that I keep room in my schedule and my commitments to do things that are fun and that make me feel healthy, such as surfing, yoga, running, being outdoors. And I've built my life around that. So I invite you to do the same. Okay, I know this was a lot, and I hope you've devoured everything in here, or at least took what you needed. And you know what? Forget the rest, come back when you need it. I have one more question for you. In the comments below, please leave your top 3 core values. And if you want to take a step deeper, let me know what's the action you're going to start doing and what are you going to stop doing. And if you want to go even deeper, let me know what you took away from this video, what you loved, what we'd like to see, and if you have any follow-up questions, it'd be my pleasure to I might have questions too, but it'd be my pleasure to answer these as well. Creating your foundation is so important because we're going to start looking at creating your vision for your dream life in the next video. Okay, have a beautiful day, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Bye.